welcome everybody. My name is Amy. I'm the director of the Ashland Public Library where you are right now. And we're very excited to have what in our town they're calling HorrorCon, horror festival, mini horror festival. Not that many, we have 4 authors here that are amazing. So I am going to step back before we, after I say a couple things. One, I'd like to thank the Friends of the Ashland Public Library who supported all of our programming and put out that amazing spread. So whenever you get hungry, please eat a whole other tray of that stuff. And of course, our authors who've made quite a trip today to be here. So I appreciate that. And of course, you who have, I see some very familiar faces who I know love horror. And maybe if you don't, maybe you'll learn to love it. I myself am a huge weenie, as Emily knows. So I don't really read it unless it's, horror-like. So I'll learn a little something too. So today we're doing a panel talk, then we have a break and you can sign books or just chat, and then we'll be playing Horror Jeopardy. And my friend John over there put together the questions. So if they're really hard, it's not my fault. He is teen librarian at the Framingham Library, and when libraries work together, it's fantastic. So welcome authors. I'm not going to introduce you, I'm not going to say anything about you. I'm just going to hand it over to you, Emily, to get us started. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us. Hi everybody, thank you so much for coming today. My name is Emily Hughes. I'm the author of Horror for Weenies, everything you need to know about the films you're too scared to watch. I am thrilled to be moderating these lovely people today, and we're sorry that Eric LaRocca couldn't make it because of a family issue, but we will do our best to keep you all entertained. So I'm going to have our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Kat Scully.
Hi everybody, I'm Kat. I'm the author and illustrator of Jennifer Strange, which was pitched as Supernatural Meets Evil Dead. And now I'm the author and illustrator of the upcoming adult horror novel Below the Grand Hotel, The Great Gatsby Meets Hellraiser. It's out May 6th. And we're also having a 1920s launch party in Salem on May 17th. There's a Facebook event, but keep your eyes peeled because we're about to announce there's a whole lot happening at this event. So definitely mark your calendars.
Clay.
Hey, I'm Clay. I recently wrote a book called Wake Up and Open Your Eyes.
Yay.
It's official.
Oh, that's it. What's the vibe?
Oh, it's all vibes.
Okay.
It's bad vibes.
Hi, I'm Rory. Forgive the coffee. I'm obligated to do Duncan SpawnCon. No, I'm not. I'll lose my voice otherwise. I'm the author of Wilder Girls and Burn Our Bodies Down, which are young adult horror thriller type things. And I have a new one in the same ilk coming out in June. I also wrote a couple of fantasy books, but we probably won't talk about those. They also kind of feel like a fever dream. I'm not sure that really happened. Wilder Girls is probably the one that most people would recognize, and it's like Lord of the Flies meets Annihilation kind of vibe. And thanks so much for having us, and it's so good to see and meet all of you.
All right, so we all basically know each other. We can just chat. So I'm not going to adhere to a strict Q&A here, but we will do questions at the end if anybody has any. Think of those now, or well, not right now. But first off, I wanted to just ask you all, what does horror do for you as a genre, as both a writer and a reader, that you don't get from other genres?
Well, it lets me be super gross, which I love.
Yes.
It's hard. You can do it in other genres, but it's a little harder and it's sometimes a little less appropriate. If you're writing a contemporary rom-com, maybe ease up. Yeah, I love that it lets me kind of put images together specifically in a way that I wouldn't be able to otherwise, and kind of take ideas that feel very disparate and really just smash them together in a fun, interesting way. There's a lot else to love about the genre as well, but I'm curious to hear you guys.
We were just talking about this upstairs, but I think this is what it gives me, like that we're here, and I think there's this vibe of I don't know, everybody, you're here to see us talk about books, and like that's just so cool. And I mean, I guess the word is community. I maybe if there was a fantasy con or a con, like I would, I'm sure they exist too, but like I don't dip into those pools. So this is the only community that I know, and it's just so I don't know, like it's just I didn't necessarily have low expectations, but I was like coming in today and I was like, who's gonna be there? And I was like, and then 12 o'clock rolled around and then everybody just showed up. And it was just like, oh my God, like people cross state lines to be here for this. And that I just don't know. I mean, I know that happens, but I just don't know where it happens for me other than with these people. And like that's horror, I guess horror just brings, I don't know, like I'm sure there's like a better answer, but like right now this is my answer. Like
There's no better answer than the answer that's right for you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, yeah.
Well, there is one, but it's a secret.
Well, well, I was a girl who grew up in north suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia, and I knew no one else who liked to watch werewolf movies like I did, and was into Hellboy and into the weird things I was. And I agree with Clay, like I found this whole community, weirdos like me who like gross things, and I'm very happy. But I think another thing I like about it is I like being the haunted house. I like being the one who's pulling the strings and setting my characters off on an adventure inside of playing out things that are hard to talk about, fears that are hard to face, seeing them overcome them. Because horror has given me a way to face my own anxieties, my own depression, and gives me a sword of like, okay, I've seen a character live through this, I can do this too. And horror's really helped me like overcome a lot of things. So it's a genre I think of like facing fears and overcoming them.
Yeah, I feel like I've run into this a lot over the years as a very anxious person who for a long time is like, no, I can't do horror. It's too scary. My own brain is scary enough as it is. And then eventually I kind of dipped a toe back in and went, oh no, this is a great place to put my anxiety. And just kind of, it's like a heat sink for my brain. But I think that community element you mentioned, Clay, is really, really important because, you know, we come to these things and we see people we know, other authors and folks in the community, and it's really, really wonderful to have that. And, you know, you get back the energy you put in, and you also crossed state lines to be here, you know?
yeah, well, I mean, it's just I didn't know Rory, but I've read her books. And like it's just wild to be like it's like Wilder Girls is awesome.
It is
And-
awesome.
And like but there's just this moment where you're just like, oh my God, like I don't know.
I feel the same about big fan over each other, really.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
I remember writing you about Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, and I was like, this is very evil, and I'm so happy right now. I was like, Clay, but Clay, it's so good.
I just don't know. Like it's like it's nice to tap into something that's like fan first, like reader first. I mean, we're all readers here, and like that's I you know if there was someone who was just like no like just like I don't read just
I just write it, I don't read it.
yeah like just like to be able to tap into this on that level just feels super cool.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know?
Well, building off that, I mean, we've all encountered people who, when you say, oh, I really love horror, or I write horror, or I watch horror, they kind of clutch their pearls and look at you like you've got two heads.
Yes.
How do you pitch yourself? How do you pitch your work to those people, or do you just write it off?
I don't know. I think I usually like, honestly, I think the fact like I was at an event, this had been in like 2019, and a bookseller met me and was like, oh, you're wearing like florals, because I was wearing like I was, you know, dressed for the event. It was a nice event. And I think she expected like, because scary things happen in the book, that I was gonna show up and look scary. And like if I had great, like, cool, but also, I think there's a kind of expectation from some people who aren't familiar with the genre that like, that there's a homogeneousness, a sameness. Just change the word to the genre, but there's so much in it. Like there is something for everyone, and I think that's the kind of thing that I try and highlight. Like maybe my horror stuff isn't for you, but there is something out there. Like, what do you like? Find the scary version.
I think I stopped. I gave up on like trying to convince other people. Like there's always like this one moment of like doing a literary event, and like you're the kind of like the outlier, or someone who's like kind of like just a little bit outside, and there's like a moment of like like a push, like a little bit of pushback. And I don't have any answer beyond that, but it's just it always feels like, oh wow, this is out of a certain kind of comfort zone, and I don't know if I need to push too far, and like I don't know, I think I kind of retreat. I'm in a retreat mode now, maybe like a turtle mode, maybe like an ostrich mode.
You're also just coming off book tour, so you're
Yeah.
probably,
Yeah, but that was amazing because there will be booksellers who are like you do events at libraries or bookstores, and you realize there are these satellites, these places where these astronauts who are librarians and booksellers, and they're out there every day at these outposts in the world, and they're basically like, people come to them and they're like, I want to read something. And they're like, you should read this. And they're out there doing that. And sometimes they're doing it for you. And then you get to go to those places, and those booksellers or librarians are like, look at the pocket, the community that we've created within our community. And these are the people who want to read stuff like this. And then you realize like, oh my God, like these exist. Like that's the amazing thing about book tours, that you get to go, maybe it's like 5 people here, maybe it's 1 person there, but like, maybe it's 50, maybe it's 27, like 25, and that's awesome, because you realize that, maybe you couldn't do that every single day, but like you could go and like just like and like plant, like I'm visiting your planet, and I want to, and that's I would do that every day if I could. Was that an answer?
yeah.
Yeah.
There's some rules, man. What about you?
So I come from being a bookseller at Barnes and Noble, and I worked in the teen section with a lot of reluctant readers. And I'm used to, I don't know what I want to read, and parents going, I don't know what to give them to get them to read. And so I'm used to trying to do the hard sell of like, no, maybe you should try horror, maybe you should try this. And I decided to write it. I decided to do, this is for fantasy readers who have maybe not dipped their toe into horror, or coming from romance and gothics or monster romance, and they like want something that's a little more horror, but a little more fantasy. And I'm like, I think I want to write in that space. I like being, no, hey, like I'm a horror fan, but I cannot do zombies. I can't do the idea of like my friends and family eating me. So I can't do it. And intestines I'm fine with, but it's the idea of my friends eating me, I'm like, can't. So I usually use myself as an example when I'm pitching someone. They're like, hey, I used to be no romance. I was not a romance reader. I was like very hard against it. And then Bridgerton happened to me. And now I spent the past 2 years devouring romance after romance after romance. I'm like, hey, don't like knock it, because you never know. There's like a million different types of romance. There's some where I'm like, that's not for me. And then there's others that are very queer where I'm like, yes, the lesbians on a flower farm in Asheville specifically for me. That's my book. So there's always something for someone. And I usually use a different genre to say, hey, like that romance is kind of like our sister. They have the same prejudices, like, oh, I don't read that. Oh, that's smut, or that's not high writing, or that's not hard to write. It's extremely hard to write. So I'm like, the same thing happens to other genres too, and we're kind of in good company. And I like talking to other writers and hearing they get the same pushback, even though horror is very different, and we're kind of seen as like the rebels and we write the gross things, and I do write gross things, but like we're all experiencing it, and I do try to still say, hey, like, if you don't like this, I kind of write that. And they go, oh, okay. And they tend to try it because I'm trying to reach them on like a level where they understand, hey, I'm just like you. There's some stuff I can't do either.
Yeah.
There's two really good books that just came out recently that kind of talk about this. One of them is called Horror for Weenies. How's that work? How's that doing for you?
You know, pretty great. It's nice to be able to, I mean, I've spent a lot of time both in my past life as a book publishing employee and a marketer, and also my past life as a bookseller at Barnes & Noble and elsewhere, just trying to get people to read things, just trying to like learning and honing my ability to sell people on a particular book, even if they never would have picked it up in a million years themselves. And it's nice to have a book where I can just be like, here, I already wrote it all down for you, right? If any of you haven't picked up Horror for Weenies yet, one of the things that was very important to me to include was 3 book recommendations for each movie. So if you're interested by the idea of, let's say, It Follows or The Babadook, but you're like, I just can't watch it. Like, here are 3 books that'll give you kind of the same vibe, or they cover the same subject matter. And that's like, I don't know, I love selling other people's books, and now I kind of have to sell my own, and I'm like, but something that's always been very important to me is going, no, you think that there's not something for you in this genre, but I promise you there is. And I really and truly believe that there is something in the horror genre for absolutely every reader, even the scariest scaredy cat of them all. I'm like, I will find you. Yep, Mina's raising her hand back there. It's like, I will find you the gentlest, like most lightly spooky, eerie gothic novel. I will find the one for you. Like, tell me what you like, and I'll give something back to you. Or, oh, I love Eric LaRocca books, and what else can I read? I'm like, well, I got Haley Piper for you. I got McLeod Chapman for you. And I missed that, not being a bookseller anymore, so I just kind of took it to the internet, and now I just yell at people to read things, and if they think I'm weird, well, that's their problem.
I love that.
One kind of person that I think I've stopped trying to convince is, do you guys get the like, oh, your book's about like murder? You say you're pro murder? Like, yeah. That's it. Got it.
Got me.
Got me. I did this whole thing just to get that out there.
Really so big murder.
I'm just like, oh, so you like ghosts? You like people being like upset? Like, yes. Sure. Okay, we're gonna move on.
Yeah, there's I've seen a lot of that too. It's like, well, a character in your book said something offensive, and therefore you must believe it. And it's like the concept of fiction.
He's a bad dude, guys. Like, he's a bad. You're not okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of that out there. I would say I had one experience at Barnes & Noble where it was the year Gideon the Ninth came out.
Oh.
Great book, wonderful book. And I had picked up a copy, and I was carrying it across the store, and I ran into this customer, and he said, he was looking for something for his daughter, and I brought it to him, and it sounded like it was exactly up her alley. And I said, look, I read like 50 books this year. This is one of my absolute favorites. I think it'll be a slam dunk. And he looked at the cover and he said to me, well, I think you should read another 50 books and come and get back to me, because it doesn't look very good.
First of all, yes, it does. The cover is great.
I know. Skeletons everywhere. But at that point, I just walked back into the break room because I was going to get myself fired. All right. So in terms of horror specialties, right? We've kind of got a range here. We've got some really gross stuff that's also political commentary. We've got a scene from What Kind of Mother that haunts me. We've got gothic historical weirdness. We've got body horror for teens. Well, not just for teens, for everybody, but about teens. For everyone. For each of you, is there a sort of a subgenre or an area of horror that you want to play around in that you haven't gotten a chance to yet?
I'm working on a romance book right now. I got Mira books and Harlequin. Like, there's an editor there who's like reaching out to horror authors and being like, "You want to write a love book? You want to write a romance?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And so it's like playing in a sandbox that maybe I haven't played in before, but I'm like bringing all my toys. So it's like, can I play in your sandbox? And like all the romance people are like, yeah. And then like we'll start sharing, like, so I don't know. I mean, it remains to be seen if it will be any good, but it's the sandbox I'm in right now.
I'm unconcerned.
But it's like all of a sudden you're like, there have been conversations of like, these are rules. And it's like, if you are not playing by those rules, or you choose to break those rules, or you choose to kind of push those rules, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you saying? And like, I think it's the first time that I've been kind of aware of like, oh, there are reader expectations. I mean, I've disappointed a lot of readers, but like,
Yeah.
but it is interesting how like I have learned through conversations with my editor that like there are expectations within the realm of romance, and if you are going to bend or push or press, that there has to be a reason, or there has to be an intent, and there has to be kind of a conversation about that. Mm-hmm. So that is new. That's an interesting challenge.
I'm doing the same thing as you. I am writing like a horror romance next.
Yeah.
I'm finding the same exact experience of like, I have these toys where I'm weird and gross. Can I bring them into your love sandbox?
There's so many cool, like Bob, oh God, what is the name of like, it's like the body is the warmest place for us to get squishy in, or something like that.
Amazing.
Build a nest in, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
I like this silent war.
That's the sequel.
See, that's a bestseller right there.
And there's like so many, like, I mean, like the Hellbound Heart is like a love, like I don't know, like it happens all the time. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's interesting to stretch different muscles, and I've been trying to read as much romance as possible to get it right. But I'm excited to bring the horror, ghost, witch elements into it, because I really want to write a witch romance. I was like, I did not know there were all these witchy romances. I'm doing it. So I'm going to get weird with it. That's the energy I'm bringing to this book, and my agent greenlit it, so it's happening.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff that I've done in horror has been really like body focused, like weird things happening to it, etc. And for my book that's coming out in June, I wanted to try and kind of work more in like psychological horror, and like what if the monster was your own brain? Like memory is such a rich place to work in, like the inherent horror of realizing that your memories are wrong, or that they have been manipulated somehow. Like, that's freaky. But I also I'm really, I don't think I can do it yet, but I want to try and work in like I don't know how to put this, like meta horror, or like cerebral horror, or like math horror. I don't know, something. Well, math is terrible. I can just see like arithmetic on the page and be like, oh. There's like I feel like I'm working kind of like here, and I want to work like up here for a minute. Sorry, I'm Greek. We gesture. And I don't quite have a handle on it yet, but I want to try and play around and see what's what. Yeah.
The horror of long division.
Exactly. You'll remember it forever.
A lot of horror writers I talk to like to say that they write what scares them. Do you guys do that? Do you venture outside that? Do you ever try writing something that doesn't scare you but you think will scare other people, or do you really just stick to like your gut as the guide?
I'll go first. So I don't think this is too much of a spoiler because it happens at the very beginning of the book, but below the Grand Hotel, if you become a demon, you get a second mouth, and that second mouth has to feed. And so some of them have a mouth here, some of them have mouths in their hands. And I just wanted to explore what that would be like, and it freaked me out. And that's kind of the line I go, it's like, I don't think about, oh, I'm really, really afraid of the darkness in the corner of the room, I'm gonna write about that. I think about what would be really weird that I could do with the human body. Let's explore that. But with my next book that's about to go on sub, that one I actually wrote every fear I have into the book because I wanted to write about a god of fear. And I wrote even my weirdest fears, like I'm afraid of birds. I'm afraid of birds pecking me. And just, I'm like, they're raptors. I don't know if they might shoot my face. I'm not sure. So I put a fear of birds into it, and I put a shark in a swimming pool, which I've always wanted to do.
That's targeted violence against me.
I'll give it to you.
You just have to be like, how did it get here? Like, did it get stuck in the filtration tubes? And then it's not scary anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and so I had to, that one took the longest to write because I had the logic, how did the shark in the swimming pool, how did it become that? And I realized it's like, it follows.
No, that's rad. I mean, like for weenies, when you need to make it not scary, just be like, yeah, it's stuck in the tube. Okay, bye.
Yeah, it's totally what happens. It doesn't change shape or anything. It doesn't appear in every river or lake or water source. Not at all. It's like Ghost Shark. I thought, and I was like, yes. But yeah, I think I just like to explore weirdness, or like, I think for me, body horror has just been a big thing because I've been through a lot of medical things. I've had MRSA where my skin fell off. I've been through a lot, and I'm like, I kind of want to explore the weirdness of being human, and like how weird and alien it is to be in your body. And then also like weird irrational fears like birds. So it's kind of a spectrum of things. And there's been times I've heard like someone's fear is very interesting to me, but I don't know how to get into that headspace. So sometimes I'll like study it to bring it in and incorporate it. But that is harder to write for me if I don't actually have that fear myself.
Right, because part of you is just like, it's pretty.
Yeah, I feel the way about clowns. I'm like, it's a clown. I'm fine. Not worried.
I find that I don't necessarily think about it as like, what am I scared of? I'm gonna write about that. It's more like things that interest me are often also things that scare me. And so there's that overlap. Like my first book is kind of just like an extended like puberty metaphor made literal. Like, isn't it weird how your body changes? Like that's super fucked up. And like my second book is like, wow, mothers, like that's weird. Let's talk about it. They don't start as like, I'm scared of this thing, but like I am scared of that thing. And I think that comes out in the way that I write about it. Or like you'll write the book and you finish and then you look back and you're like, oh, that's what it's about. That's super scary. So I usually kind of like walk backwards into it without really realizing.
At a certain point, I realized this is a real wonderful privilege to be able to write and publish and be able to kind of like tell scary stories. And I realized that the more skin in the game that I have, and I always say that, like, it's like, you gotta have skin in the game, you gotta have skin, like, what is my emotional investment into the story that I'm telling? And it wasn't that it was not that to begin with, but at a certain point I realized, like, I wanna use this as an opportunity to talk about something that is scaring me. And I think as soon as I became a parent, there's a lot more to be scared of in the world. And like, I just started writing about, I mean, it's awful, but like I cast my kids in like these personal horror movies every day where it's just like, I see them off and then it's like, I get to be scared for the rest of the day. And like the only outlet was writing. And that there was like a more kind of enriched experience of the stories. I think I became a better writer when I started writing about the things that scared me. And so like having like now the approach is like, okay, well, what am I scared of now? What am I scared of today? And the world's a really scary place. And like, you don't have to go far to find something, or I don't have to go far to find something that terrifies me. And that's just been it. The only change is that it's like, okay, me. Like it's like a weird kind of like the optic is like, what am I really afraid of right now? And that is the kind of runway, you know, because then it becomes like exploring all these other things and kind of like, you know, strain from that initial fear. But the kind of core kind of like like the first root, the seed has to be this like, I'm scared of this. I want to explore that. And then the rest just kind of like expands off of that.
Would you say you have like a deep-seated fear of Vitamix blenders?
I mean, well, yeah, I mean, like at a certain point, it's just like, I mean, those things are in my house. And like, I mean, to answer it earnestly, like, honestly, like like to pull back, like Vitamix is just the kind of like the product of something that is actually far more insidious, which is wellness culture kind of scares me because I have certain members of my family who have shifted in their ideologies over the course of however many years. And it started because these members of my family wanted to feel better about themselves, and how they chose to kind of engage in that desire was clicking on a link of like someone being like, you know, do this or try this or eat this, or you know, and you know, it wasn't overnight, but it was like a kind of like a gradual shift into, you know, this is who they were, and now this is who they are. And it's not the Vitamix per se, but it's the person who is peddling. It's the stuff behind it that kind of pushed it. And in that book, like the Vitamix was just this like in the best Raimi way, you know, like what is the embodiment of someone who's like, I wanna be better, and then like what is the end result of that when it's just goes wrong, and it's just making yourself into a smoothie. Yeah.
So I love your book.
Is there something is there a horror no-go for each of you? Is there something, you said zombies earlier, is there anything you're just like, I can't go there?
I don't think they're horror specifically. They can be. I don't think they always are, but mermaids they can't do. I don't like them. They, like what's happening there? I don't like it. Yet. I'm sure there is something out there where it's not for me, but I haven't seen or read it yet. But mermaids, you know,
like a no-go in the sense of like, I don't like mermaids, or like I'm scared of mermaids.
it's like
What's
like how do they decide which half is going to be the fish? Is it a question every time? Is every mermaid like flipping a coin that they could be top half fish? Like what is going on? It's a lot.
She's replaying a TTRPG with a friend right now, and she's playing as a reverse mermaid.
Amazing.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. That's it. That's all I got.
Great answer.
That's a great answer.
Not really, but I don't know how to write a vampire story. I would love to write a vampire story, but I don't know how to write that.
Yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Zombies for you.
Zombies for me, but also kids. As a mom, that is really hard for me.
Yeah.
And my next book, Mercy Park, it's about to go on sub. I don't want to talk about how hard that was. But when you all read it, you'll know that was hard for me to write. But like, I have a hard time with kids in horror movies, and I'm like, they better be okay, the dog better be okay, and the kids better be okay. That's what I care about.
Yeah.
I feel the same with dogs and animals, because I have a dog that's like my familiar, and I'm like, nope, don't want the animals to get hurt.
Yeah, I have animal torture and death, I just can't, like, I have a really tough time with that. Other than that, like eye stuff and fingernail stuff, it's just like I have to put it down and go take a walk.
Does that change the way that, like, would you then be like, I'm gonna write a eyeball book?
I mean,
The eyes are the best part.
The eyes are the best part.
Yeah.
Did you read that?
Yeah.
How was it?
It was fantastic.
Did it get you over the hump?
No.
The eyeball hump?
No, I was queasy the whole time. It was a great book.
Yeah.
You know,
Have you guys read that book?
Yes.
It's like an amazing, like, I'm tasting eyeballs right now, like, and it's because of that book.
it's if any of you haven't seen it, the cover is an eyeball between two chopsticks, which is just it's evocative and horrible. Yeah, no, I mean, yes, eventually, like, yeah, I'm gonna have to cross that bridge, but it's easier when I'm in control of it, I guess. Because I can pull back or, you know, dive right in there as needed, but like in other people's hands, I'm like, oh no, I'm in trouble, I'm in danger. Yeah. Do you have an author working right now who's not in this room, who you think more people should read in the horror space?
I mean, this is kind of a gimme because I feel like a lot of people already are reading it, but Stephen Graham Jones is just like everything. I just read I Was a Teenage Slasher, and I loved like the way that he was playing actively with the rules of the genre that he's in. And I just think the more people who read it, the better. So
The man is a stone cold genius.
Mhm.
God damn it.
that's what I was saying. Like, yeah, just kidding. I know.
There's a book that's coming out in a couple of weeks called Wrecked, and it's Rekat, and it's by this guy, and it's a debut novel by a guy named Alex Gonzalez, and it is a book that is really hard to recommend. But it is a book that like, oh wow, it actually like genuinely traumatized me. Like I read that book and I was like, I don't feel good. And so it's like a hard one to recommend, but it's like I actually genuinely want people to find this book. And it's like, you know, we read great books all the time. It's like, you know, Nat Cassidy's great, like Rachel Harrison is great, you know, Stephen Guy's great, like, you know, like they're like amazing books. But it's like, oh, this is a book that I actually want to go out of my way to tell people, like, this is a book that will, like, there is a BC and an AD to you as a human being after reading this book. And like, you don't have to AD it. You never have to read this book. But like, you will be a different person after you read this book. So do you want to be a different person? Like, do you want to change? Like, are you okay being the same person? Like, so many people will be okay being the same person. But you read Wrecked and it will, it does something to you. It's like so but you should read it.
Strong endorsement.
I think I'm gonna go with an indie author that I feel like really needs his day, Douglas Wynn. I read his book last year that hasn't been published yet. He's actually querying it right now, and it was my favorite book that I read last year. And it's a group of friends who were once in a band, and one of them tapped into the energy of finding the perfect song in the universe, and it involves spiders, and like, it's so creepy. And I just devoured that book, and I wrote him, I'm like, I don't know how you're not agented yet, your books are incredible, like, And he's an indie author who's like still trying to break in, so Douglas Wynn for sure. I absolutely love him, and I think one day he's gonna be sitting in Barnes and Noble because his books are so good. And the book I read is called The Muse.
Excellent.
The Muse was so good.
You guys all like nodding about his hair.
Yeah, it's not great hair.
Everybody was like, someone said he has
Yeah,
great
yeah.
hair, and then like everyone was just like.
He does have great hair. Oh,
Warren
please.
Zevon made that lyric.
His hair was perfect. So.
Also recall.
This is I ask this question every time I'm on a panel, who's your favorite, who's an author you think more people should be reading? And I never have a good answer for my own question because I'm like, how much time do you have? Right?
Yeah.
But some things that I've read recently that I have really just blown me away, are all coming out later this year. One is Spread Me by Sarah Gailey, which is for the real freaks. It's a love story. It is a love story. Yeah. It's very sexy, question mark. It's a novella. It's a riff on The Thing, set in a desert at like an isolated research station, and they bring a specimen from outside, inside, and everything goes horribly wrong, as you might expect. But Sarah is one of those writers who they don't always get grouped in with horror because they just like dance between genres. They do fantasy, they do sci-fi, they do thrillers. But their previous horror book, Just Like Home, so good. One of the most inventive haunted house stories I think I've ever read. And then recently, Victorian Psycho by Victoria Fato, which I absolutely loved. Paul Tremblay was talking to me about it, and I was like, all right, I gotta pick this up and read it. And he told me he wished that he had written it. And I feel like that's like about as good of a selling point as you could possibly get for a book. Oh, okay. We've got a few more minutes.
How did Paul say it though? Was he like, wish I wrote that one?
That's a very good impression.
Room with us right now.
How did he say it? Was he like, really, like, how, like, can you do it?
Almost resentful.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, man, share some glory with the rest of us.
You're fine. Oh,
You're doing great. So we've got a few more minutes and then I'll open it up for questions. But I wanted to ask, what's next for each of you? Whether that's publication, whether that's what you're working on now, whatever you want to highlight.
Yeah, I have my next book comes out on June 3rd. It's called Kill Creatures, and I've been calling it my reverse Pretty Little Liars book. Where it's about a girl named Nan and her 3 best friends went missing last summer. So sad. And everyone's like, oh, they're for sure dead. And then one of them comes back and is alive, which is like super cool, but also super weird because Nan is like really sure that she killed all 3 of her friends last summer. And so she's not sure what anybody is doing back. And I just had like the best time writing it. It was so fun. It's also short, which I love. So yeah, that's out in June, and then I'm just kind of working on some weird stuff right now. Not sure where any of it will go, but it's exciting. So
You just like, I'm gonna start something, I don't know what it is, and we'll see where it goes.
yeah, I have learned over the course of like 4 or 5 years that I can't make anybody any promises, because as soon as I tell someone that's what I'm doing, a little contrarian part of my brain is like, well, no, I'm not going to do it. Now I don't like it anymore. So I have learned to stop telling anybody anything until I have like a full book or a draft that I can show someone and be like, hey, I did this. Nobody is happy about that. My agents and editor are annoyed. But it means that I don't have to send them like 3 emails over the course of 3 months being like, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm doing this other thing. And then I'm not doing that other thing. I'm doing this other thing. So we're learning.
Do you make discoveries as you go? Like you start something and then you'll be like 3 months later, like, oh, it's actually this.
Yeah, which is like, I love it, but it's not how this industry works, like at all. They like to know what a book is about, and I usually don't know that until I'm like 3 drafts in and I've like picked it up and moved it around a bunch. So it's, yeah, I've accepted this about myself, I think, at long last. What about you guys though?
I have a collection of short stories coming out in September, and it's called Acquired Taste.
Ooh, that's a good title.
I learned the hard way that that's what I am. And so there's that, and then I have a YA novel coming out in November, so see how people take that one.
What's it called?
It's called Shiny Happy People.
Oh, I like that.
I don't.
Okay. I'll stop talking now.
I mean, like, it's like clearly like
Yeah.
you know, someone's like, but like, you know, when you're, I don't know, like song lyric titles are,
They're tricky.
they're tricky. And like, there's that feeling of like, want, I don't know, like, it just feels like you say trying to have people and people are like, yeah. And like, how can you not hear the song now?
I didn't, because I don't.
I did immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Do you not know the song?
I don't know that I do. Now I'm.
Don't let her.
That's totally sad.
My brain's going sly and the family's home. Now I will only hear you.
Like Kate Pearson from.
Oh, would I do?
Well, it's not me, it's Mariam.
Oh, then I definitely don't know it.
Now you're gonna hear it. You're gonna hear it like in the car on the way home. That's how.
That's what we all hear.
R.E.M. horror.
Michael Stipe's
saw
right behind you.
Is he in the room with us right now?
That's him in the corner.
Okay, what am I even doing up here? Oh my gosh, okay, Mr. 3 books a year over here.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Look, you're crushing it.
The wheels are gonna fall off though, like it's gonna stop, like,
No.
no, but the right,
No,
you
we're
ride,
gonna- we're gonna
you
practice.
ride, you ride the
Yeah,
wave.
You're just gonna sit there and you're gonna go, thank you. Ready? You're smashing it.
I have Below the Grand Hotel coming out in May. So, I flipped it. I have it coming out in May. I'm super excited about it. Yeah, I poured a lot into this book and it's for artists. I wrote this for all artists, writers, dancers, poets, musicians. It's about trying to break into the industry and toiling away forever and what that means. So this book is for readers and for all of you. And so I'm really, really excited to write a book with something to say. And then after that, I'm sitting on a backlog, 7 books. I've been publishing 10 years. I've on my 4th agent. We're finally getting some traction. So next I have Mercy Park, which I actually wrote before Below the Grand Hotel, and that is the shark and swimming pool. It Follows book. And then after that, I have the Salem Witches book, which is going to be the horror romance. So I'm doing some research in Salem right now with some of my friends that own local businesses to get the kind of idea of what it's like to run a business in Salem. And that's what I'll tell you for now. So we've got a title, we've got a pitch. I structure the whole book. I'm an artist, so I think like screenwriting, like storyboard the whole thing out before I write it. So I know exactly what I'm doing, like shot for shot, the whole book. So yeah, that's the next process.
I'm so sorry in advance, but the Ghost Shark It Follows book, would you call that It Swallows?
Saying that. You had to hear first. Mercy Park is It Swallows. I'm so happy.
It's never a sure thing when I drop a line like that, so thank you for being.
I love puns. Yes, thank you.
Okay, well, you're all wonderful.
Yes, what do you have next? Yeah.
Yeah, but it has to wait till after I buy a house, which is what I'm doing immediately. But yeah, no, I've been kicking around this idea in my head for years, and I'm finally getting, it was the thing I was gonna do, and then horror for weenies, kind of that opportunity kind of cropped up, and so I put it on the back burner. What I will tell you about it is that it is a sci-fi horror novel set in a nuclear power plant. All right, well, you have all been wonderful, and we could do this literally all day, and may, in fact. We will be doing Horror Jeopardy sooner rather than later.
But I would love to open it up for any questions from our lovely audience.
This is like, I'm reminded, I haven't read the new book yet, but everything I've heard about, and especially the title, it reminds me of the early days of COVID when Paul Tremblay had Survivor Song and when they had Wanderers come out.
Mm-hmm.
The world we live in, I mean, how does it feel releasing a book like this that obviously you wrote before, but now with what's going on and stuff, what's that?
I mean, it's not a good feeling. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, it's really hard. I don't know. I wrote it, and I don't know if I was kind of necessarily, like, there's a certain kind of naivete that is either privilege or hubris or just kind of like a complete lack of foresight on my part. But like, I wrote it, and I honestly didn't. I mean, I think the assumption was that it would just be in the rearview mirror, like life would progress in its direction, and this would feel like an artifact. And I don't know, it isn't, and but I also I feel like it doesn't necessarily put the book in any. It doesn't change the book in some. I don't want to put the book on a pedestal and say, like, you know, I feel like it's just like it was gross writing it. It's gross putting it out. Like, it's just like there's like a certain kind of an inert quality, and I think that's why I'm writing a romance book, because I just want to feel love. I just want to feel like, and it's not even happiness per se, but just like but I don't know, like I just want like a feeling. I need to get out.
Curse of timeliness.
I don't know. I mean, like, did Paul talk about it? Like, I mean, I know that he like, I know he jokes about it, but does he like ever like say, like, my understanding of the world at this point was this, but now that it was this, it's different?
Yes, he did say that to me. I don't know if he did in any interviews, did he?
No, I just in conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's alluded to, you know, boy, that was just bad. Let's, for any of you who don't know, Paul Tremblay released a book in like May 2020 called Survivor Song. That's about a plague that spreads horribly throughout Massachusetts, and you know, tough time for that book to land. But yeah, no, I think just in conversation, he'd said, you know, that was just bad luck, but what can you do? You know, there's no way to predict.
Did he feel like it was bad luck? Did he say, was he like, oh, shoot? Or was he like, I mean, I feel like the flip side of that is like, like, like,
Really sanguine about it, you know.
Yeah.
Just feeling, well.
Paul Tremblay?
Oh, great. Nina?
So as a romance reader, I'm super happy about, I would call it romance, but that is becoming a thing. But I also, I think Rory said you had a book that now you're like, I want to say something. So following up, maybe it was just that. Oh, okay, sorry. I heard it. I don't know who said it. That, do you feel like the books that you write do say something to people? I mean, especially following up on the last comment about my book, is that obviously it said a lot to a lot of people. So when you write, do you think you're going to say something to people?
I try not to think about it too much actively, at least in the like early drafting process, because I find that if I think too much on the like theme level first, the story suffers and it turns into just like very much like, oh, she's talking to me, like, and so I think I have to kind of put in layers and then look back and see what threads are there and either bring them out or like work with them already. But I found, I'm sure it's different for everybody, but I found that if I approach it kind of top down, it sounds like a Twitter thread and it doesn't sound like a book. So, but I think it would be very hard to write. It already is hard to write a book, but I think it would be very hard if you didn't feel the impulse to communicate something, whatever that is.
You said it.
I did. So the theme of this came from the story of how this got published. This was originally a short story that got sold to Sam Gafford with a spin-off of Occult Detective Quarterly magazine. And he passed away feeling like he wrote all these books and no one had ever heard of him and he toiled away in obscurity. And so when my agent was like, you need to take the short story and make it into a book, I was like, that's what I want to talk about. Because I've worked in almost every creative industry. I've worked for Cartoon Network, I've worked in video games, I've done concept art for film, concept art for video games, I've illustrated books for 10 years. I've done a lot of different artistic jobs. I've met a lot of other artists and who feel like how Sam did. And so I'm like, I have something to say. Like, I want to talk about this and I want the hotel to be, you know, it's Hollywood. It's entirely about that idea of like being sold this American dream that you can make it as an artist and have a living, and how often that dream is influenced by so much else. And it's also so many other people and there's this competition. And then Mabel does discover exactly what I did along the way, which is it's about the people, not about making it. It's about the community and not about being famous. So the dream is great and all of getting published, but it's really the people that matter the most. And I was like, I got a lot to say about all of that. So it was the first time that came together in that way, but it was because it sold, then the magazine fell apart in Sam's death. And I'm like, I dedicated this book to him for that reason and to all artists for that reason. But not every one of my books comes together that way. It's usually just, I want to write about a shark in a swimming pool. How do I make that make sense? It takes me 5 years, but I figured it out. So it's not that way every time, but like even with the shark book, I'm talking about fear and how to deal with fear when you're afraid. How do you deal with it? Is it like the Babadook? Do you just live with it forever? So some of it is I'm talking about artists here, and others is just I'm talking about fear, but it doesn't always have to be a really big theme. Sometimes it can be a small theme, someone very personal.
There was this moment at this is Eric's story, so I'm going to tell Eric's story because he's not here. But there was a moment we were at Gibson's bookstore on tour. And there was a group of people, and during the Q&A, someone, I have a comment, not a question, and it was this reader had come, however far they had traveled, it was their first book event, and they had read a story by Eric, and it meant the world to them. And they shared that with Eric, and we were all there kind of witnessing this moment. And it was just really beautiful because it was like whatever Eric said in this story that was a part of a collection, it wasn't so much the intent of like, I am saying this, as much as the reader was like, this is what the story said to me. And they shared that, and like it was such a really beautiful moment because you're just saying to yourself like, whatever we're doing, like it's not that it's incidental as much as it is like we might have our own agendas or we might have our own kind of like mandates or intent, like just this is what I want to do or this is what I want to say. But like for this reader and for any reader, hopefully maybe like they will something will connect to them that is almost outside the realm of your own kind of purview of like authorial intent. And like I don't know, like that, it is like that weird feeling of like, it's almost better for me not to have a, like, this is what I want to say, or this is what I want to do, as much as it is like, this is the story I want to tell. And, you never know who it's going to connect with, how many people it's going to connect with, but if it connects to one person and that one person is there to kind of, I mean, you'll never know how many people, if anyone, but like to see someone say, I connected to this, and see that connection kind of like, it's like the loop closes, the circuit kind of like connects. And I don't know, like that was really special. And there were people here today who came for Eric, right? Like people like, so it's a real bummer that he's not here. Can you just all say, what do we want to say to Eric? Like, we're sad that you're not here. Like, hi, Eric. We miss you, Eric.
Yeah.
Can we just say we miss you, Eric, on the count of three? 1, 2, 3.
We miss you, Eric.
There. I'm gonna text him.
Well, any question in the back?
Okay, sorry, I have like a few questions, so in my ADHD it's like, which is the most important question.
I get the same thing.
I want to say all of you are incredibly talented and lovely people and lovely humor. You're all so amazing. So huge Evil Dead fan. I have a question for you, Clay. Great. Okay. So when you say Evil Dead type, I came in, heard Evil Dead, and like, okay, what like kind of Evil Dead? Like a final girl moment? Like, cause I know like I'm sorry, I'm gonna I need to
Go for it.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Like Evil Dead is like always like taking like final girls and putting them in like really scary situations, like life situations, but then like the whole film is like supposed to be like, you can fight these deadites, you can actually be the final girl moment because you're so hot and now you have one arm and now you're even better and you slay. So like
Ash is a total final girl.
yeah, and I have a huge crush on Alec, but that's sorry, I'm very yappy.
You're good?
It's the coffee. Yeah, sorry, that was my question of like what like kind of like theme of like Evil Dead type of thing. I'm sorry, I'm yapping.
No, it's funny because like, for me, my entry point was Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. And that is like a fundamental text to me. And what I really love about the series in general, and in the remakes and the sequels as well, is I think there's a certain kind of nihilism that plays into it, where like I particularly with the sequels and the remakes, where it's like I have a hard time finding hope in them. There's like a certain chaos and depravity to these. Like, I think it's the best demonic possession. Like, it's so weird. When I watched the first 3 films, I didn't realize they were demonic possession films. Like, it was just like, oh, this feels like people are getting, like, they're doing things, and like, but when someone says those are, like, when you see them on the list of like best demonic possession films, I was like, that's a possession? Like it didn't click for me. And then, but watching the sequels, like the sheer kind of like, how is anyone going to survive this? Like, it's just not like the level of endurance and the kind of depravity of the demons themselves, and the kind of like, I find the sequels hard. I find less hope in them. And for me, writing this recent book, Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, I wanted to kind of like walk that line of the chaos and the joyous depravity of Evil Dead 2, which is like there is a kinetic energy that Sam Raimi brings to the film, which is it's so alive. And but then with the sequels, the kind of like, oh, these people are dead. Like they're just not gonna, they're not, like and I don't know, like it's hard to find hope for me personally in those sequels. Like even with the Final Girls, like what is survival after all of that? And I don't know, like so that to me is two separate things, but like I think my spiritual animal is Evil Dead 2. Like that's mine, but like through the contemporary lens of the remix, particularly Evil Dead Rise, which I think is
So good.
like it's a stellar movie.
So good.
Yeah. And I wanted to not like the sequel. I was like, sacred cow, don't come near me. Like, I was like, these are like special movies and you can't do this. And they did it, and I was like, oh, this is pretty good. It's good,
And I
right?
like that they tied 3 books together.
Yes.
That was like, yes.
Yeah.
I wanna-
You know what? We're gonna be upstairs. Like we can, like there's so much. Like we're not going anywhere for hours. We're
Locked in here with us.
I love
We are out of time for our Q&A, but Mina is gonna come and tell us the layout of the rest of the day.
That's right, so thank you, this is great.